Welcome to part two.
Hey everybody, welcome to part two of this intense episode. Two parts,
Yeah.
one word
Yeah.
that we never even say. It's not a mystery. You'll figure out what that word is really quickly. But this is the Lionheart Institute podcast, and I'm Richard Thomas.
And I'm Tiffany Thomas.
And we want to welcome you to a very intense discussion on the N-word. We are in part two of a two-part series discussing Black History Month and the use of the N-word. We had one of our subscribers, which I love when this happens, leave a comment, and that comment captured our attention. And so we've made what we thought was going to just be a one-part response and turn it into a two-part response, and we hope that you'll benefit from it. Please do enjoy the video, like, comment, and subscribe.
Absolutely.
Enjoy. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Right.
And so they began to use that word in a way of greeting one another in "we got this."
Yep.
In a word of encouragement. It's kind of funny because I've been in the gym industry my whole life, and nobody has a problem saying, "Hey, it's beast mode time." Right? But essentially, if you think about it, that's what the N-word was, that they used it to call us beasts.
Yeah.
They used this, what's that fancy word that you said earlier, that we weren't cattle, we were... Shadow, right? We were just human beings doing a job that were less than human. We were basically animals.
Yeah.
And so they used that word to create a demographic of people, right? That they didn't have to feel guilty or shameful about in their Christian world perspective of treating that we were less than human, right? And so they validated that by creating this genre of people, this class of people called the N-word, right? And what happens when Richard Pryor shows up is he said, "Hey, you've pointed the finger at us and created us. You've named us this. But we're literally going to use the momentum and the anger of this to climb out of the situation that we're in towards a brighter light." Now, was that, if we're psychologists and we're writing the roadmap to recovery, is that the best way to do it? Maybe not, right? If you're struggling with alcohol, right, and you're struggling with beer, and they're saying, "Hey, you're an alcoholic," it's probably not necessarily the best thing to turn to vodka and say, "Hey, I'm gonna drink my way out of this," right? However, it did have for many people of color that sense of empowerment that says, "You're not going to mess with my mind anymore."
Right.
If you want to call me a savage, then I'm not only going to be a savage, but I'm going to be an intellectual savage at the next level, and I'm going to work harder, and I'm going to apply the techniques of the ghetto or the hood of the positive qualities of this word to work my way out of it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why after kind of learning that the word became an empowerment.
Neutralized, empowered.
Right, you took something really bad and negative and you turned it around to empower yourselves to say you can't take from us anymore. And I think after understanding that and learning that, then I realized that, you know what, the reality is no person who is not a person of color should ever say the N-word, ever. I don't care who you are. It should
Asian, Hispanic.
it should never come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Because that word was meant for a
Islander.
very specific person, and it is only people of color that have a right to do what they want with that word.
Sure.
And even at times where I feel like, I don't think it should be said at all, but it's not my place to tell people of color that you can't use this word. We created it, we gave it to you, and now we're saying, hey, we want to take it back.
Yeah. And we want to disempower your use of it for what is in general sense equality. Right. And when you look at it, and we'll dive into this a little bit. Obviously, if all things are equal, I would love to never hear the word myself. I
agree.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that if we could strip the world of a word, this would be the word that I decided. Let's take this out of the world.
Yeah, for sure.
However, I'm sure that Asians have their own word. I'm sure Pacific Islanders have their own word.
Yeah.
I'm sure that every community, I know that I've talked to some Caucasian white Americans who are deeply offended. Don't be offended at this. I'm just saying the word, right? Which you can't even say the N-word.
Right.
But we can say these words, right? Cracker.
Right.
Howley would be applied.
Honky.
Right? I have a great joke. 1 minute. Okay. God's walking through the garden, and he looks at Adam, and he says, Adam, you have the wonderful responsibility of naming all the animals of the garden. And he said, oh, man, thank you. He said, what are you going to name that one? He said, well, that one, Hops, I'm going to call him Frog. There was another one that walked around and barked. He said, what are you going to name that one? He said, I'm going to call that one Dog. He said, what are you going to call that one? He said, oh, it's on all fours. It's got big fluffy ears and a tail. I'm going to call that one Donkey. He said, what you going to call that one? It's on two legs running from the black guy. He said, I'm going to call that one Honky. I don't know why I found that a funny joke. It's inappropriate, damn it.
But the truth is, being called a cracker, being called a honky, being called any of these things are not offensive to me. And
to be honest with you, I told the joke because I don't think anyone watching it, other than if you're a Karen or you're very prude, you would really be offended by that, right? I don't mean it offensively. It's honestly, I told the joke to segue into that statement that I find very few words, unless you're in a position of power, degrading to people below you, right, or that you're over, have much power.
I mean, look, the truth is, if you are truly offended by the term cracker, you have to actually make an effort to be offended.
Sure.
By it. Like, you have to be, like, openly, like, angry. You have to invoke emotion to make yourself,
sure.
Because it's not an offensive word.
Or honky. You have to have grown up in an era, in a situation, in a time where that had power.
Right, because none of these words have ever had power over us.
Right.
And we were never oppressed by these words. We were never degraded by these words. These weren't words that were used to make us less than who we were.
Right.
So that's why these words have no power to truly invoke true emotions that would make you offended.
And we're going to talk a little bit about rap and the emergence of the N-word in rap. It's as a voice of empowerment from Richard Pryor to groups like NWA and so forth. But you look at it, and now it's even more complicated because you're 100% right. It is losing the sting that it once had because of its usage, right? And so you have people like, well, I'll just take generations. My generation, who began to use it to flip in a positive way, right? Hey, we got this. You're going to be all right, bro. I got your back, right? Family, we're going to make it through this.
Yeah.
To our younger generation, the kids that I have, now just using it as no power at all, right? Just as a greeting, essentially, right? And so now you have not only that, but you have mixed kids using it with full black kids, right? And now the mixed kids are kind of the bridge to, and full black kids are with white kids that are now greeting white kids with the same word. And so now kids that are Caucasian growing up in a middle class home, hearing it not only in rap music, but talking in the same terms of a friend, it's being flipped into a word of endearment amongst all people, where in my generation, listen, we didn't even use it openly around white people, period. So we would greet each other with it. We would say, that's my so forth and so on. But if there was a white teacher in the room, we wouldn't allow them to hear it because we wouldn't want them to think that they got the one up on us, that we were using their word, their language to humiliate our friends, right? Where now, if you walk through a junior high school or a high school in America, you hear Asian kids calling Asian kids that, right? And so it's a very difficult topic to address because, yes, we want it to be eradicated, but now does it even have the same meaning?
True. Yeah, I think that's really important. And I think as a society, we have to come together and decide where we want to take this from here. Because as you said, the meaning kind of has gotten lost on this younger generation. And the reason for your generation for flipping it made sense, right? And it was used very importantly to empower you. The younger generations don't understand that, you know?
I remember I'm in college, I think, at this point, or going into college, and NWA is everything and everybody, right? And I'm looking at this new situation with this new group that's now on the scene, and they use the word 184 times in a single song, right?
Wow.
And the wild thing of it is, in my mind, every time I heard it, I felt more edified.
Right.
I felt more built up. I felt more confident to face the world that we lived in. Where, obviously, if I heard my child say it 5 times in the same sentence nowadays, I'm going to be angry. But you have to look at, where did rap music begin to embrace that word, right? You have to understand the poetry that they wrote those words down with. That poetry came from an environment. That environment was an environment created by predominantly Caucasians who put us within a bubble of poverty, restriction to resources, a place where it was very difficult for us to achieve. And so we had to begin to flip it in a way that says, you know what? Those things that were used against us, we're going to use for the good, right?
Right.
That no weapon formed against us shall prosper, right? We had to begin to flip it in a way that we said, hey, that which has been kind of a bat to beat us down, we're going to take that same wood and we're going to, instead of using it as a bat against each other, we're going to use it to build a staircase. And I really think that that's one of the most important things, that when we hear the use of it, we have to contextualize it. We have to begin to understand, how is that word being used? Because words and language are just tools, right? They're just instruments. And so you can use wood to build a bat that you would use to harm other people.
Yeah.
Or you could use that wood to build a staircase to climb higher. And the intent of the black community, obviously, those of us who embraced it, was not to build a bat to beat one another with, certainly. Wasn't even a bat to beat white America with it. It was for us to say, you know what, we can flip this word and we can build a staircase to get us to another level where that word won't have any power. Now we're climbing to that level. Now, the response and the question that Jeff presented to us was, well, you hear that word all the time in rap music, right? And so his usage of it is, if you hear it all the time in rap music, then why can't I use it, right? Well, you have to begin to understand, just because you hear it doesn't mean that you can use it, because you can't give it context, right? My youngest son of Christy, Peyton, his name is a beautiful name, one of my favorite names. That's why I named him Peyton. Peyton, named Peyton Judah Jakes Thomas. Right? Peyton is a beautiful name, and so, but it's a long name to say, right? So if you're giving him a pat in the back, you don't want to have to say Peyton all the time. You're calling him, he's at the walking down the street, you don't want to have to say Peyton all the time. So you give him a nickname, and that nickname happened to be Pepe. Okay, which I found out means, in a different language, big stinky fart. Now, it gave me great joy to know his name means big stinky fart.
Oh my goodness, that's really funny.
And the person who told me said, "Are you going to stop calling him Pepe now?" I said, "Oh no, he's always going to be Pepe." Okay. Because it has that context to it, right? And so that word, even though nobody wants to be called big stinky fart, right? That's just craziness, right? Hello, welcome to the board meeting. We're going to have the next presentation by Big Stinky Fart. Please. Please, yeah. Share what you're going to say. Hope it's on toilet paper. Right? But for us, loving him, right? We use it to elevate him, to build. It's still a term of endearment to us, right? When we go into the weight room, we talk about, let's go beast mode. Let's go hard. Time to be a lion heart, right? Well, that is what the N-word was originally established in. Basically calling us beasts, lions, animals, right? But we flipped it for the good to get positive energy out of it. And while I would say, certainly, listening to rap music, you do hear the N-word a lot. When you listen to old school rap, it was very intentional, the use of it to as a word of empowerment. Now, as you kind of listen to music, all things change, right?
Well, and as you talk about context, I think it's really important to understand that every genre of music tells its own story.
So good.
And they're all different stories. So, country music, and I say that because that was kind of where this all came from, was the country music artists. I love country music. They say, no matter what you go through in life, you can sure as hell find a country song that talks about it, and make you feel better. So, or
make you depressed.
Right? Because, country music's just about real life, and that's what people love about it, right?
Sure, right.
Is the authenticity about the stories. Well, essentially, rap music is the same, but it's a different kind of story that I think make people uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so, with any...
Especially Caucasians uncomfortable, because it's a world that, yes, most of them realizes existed.
Yes.
Some of them are even aware that their ancestors helped create the environment of that, or maybe even they did, created the environment of that word. However, you want to be able to ignore it.
Right. So I think that's where context is so vital in things like this, is because we listen to rap music, especially as a white person, and I'm offended usually in the first 5 seconds of the song. And that's if I can even understand half the things that they're talking about. So, but again, it's all about context. So you have to understand where the place where they're writing from, the life that they have lived, because it's very different than the life you lived. And with any genre of music, they write about their truths.
Right.
And so you have to look at it from that perspective, that while you may not like what rap music represents and the things that they talk about, but for the rap artists who are writing this music, that's their life. That is where they came from. And so I think that you really have to understand that.
One of the things that I always found difficult about rap music, and believe it or not, I was a rapper. I just didn't have a very unique voice, and so I had to give it up very early for football. Like,
no, he still does it all the time.
Nobody's gonna pay me, right? So you got to step on. But one of the things for me that was far more offensive in rap music was the misappropriation of women.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And that's much more challenging for me, because that's not necessarily the true existence and the story of every inner city. However, the use of the N-word, the treatment of black people as such, is true in every inner city that I've ever been studied, or visited. And so you have to look at, how did that evolve? Well, you had people that wrote checks for music. Okay.
Right.
And which leads us to Nick Cannon.
Right.
Okay. You had people who began to create a genre of rap called gangster rap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there were people that rose above gangster rap, or not necessarily rose above, went a different route.
Yeah.
People like Will Smith, Jazzy Jeff, right? Great articulate artists who very much were great rappers.
Yeah.
Okay. However, they didn't use the N-word, used no cuss words, didn't downplay the value of women in their music, right?
True.
And they had their own category of rap.
Yes.
Okay. When you look at the other groups that were engaged, right? You have the NWA and the emergence of those types of groups. It's the only one that I've kind of said repeatedly. 2 Live Crew, so forth and so on.
Yeah.
Right? They were really looked in the eyes, and they were told by producers, you don't sound ghetto enough.
Right.
You don't sound black enough. And so a whole world, and I'm certainly not blaming just the producers or record labels for this, but they played a significant role in it, that those who progressed wrote music that was based on the genre that would get them paid.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like country music.
Yeah.
There's certain chords that are popular at certain times. There's certainly delivery styles that are popular at certain times. And so while I love country music when Hank was doing it, the original Hank was doing it, right? Hank Jr. began to lose me a little bit. And by the time I got to what they call now pop country, I don't have any idea what I'm supposed to do. If I'm supposed to wear cowboy boots, tennis shoes, wear a cowboy hat, I don't know if I'm supposed to wear an American flag as my underwear. I don't know where I'm at with this stuff now, right? And so I'm just saying that all things kind of evolve and are given labels. And so when you have a guy like Nick Cannon, which, Jeff, we're not going to ignore it, even though it's a very difficult topic to really address without being offensive. Nick Cannon was in some ways trying to point to that reality, right? And while I don't support Nick Cannon's statements, right? I don't necessarily believe all the things that he believes or the way that he presented them. What he presented was not so much an argument that was worthy of him losing his job. It was just his belief, right? When you talk about Morgan, I want to say this very clearly. I personally do not think that what he said was worthy necessarily of him losing his job.
Right.
Okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's a very difficult situation that Morgan was in. But what he said he did, I'm very sorry, it was an accident, was not the truth.
Right. And to repeat it again.
Right. So that's what I'm saying much more so about Morgan, is that what he did was intentional. What he did is a part of his vocabulary. What he did is something that he does with his white friends or his black friends on a regular basis. And so for us to pretend that he's very, very sorry, right? And pretend that what he did can just be brushed under the carpet without really saying, okay, let's address it. Let's talk about this. Let's get to the real root of this. Let's really dialogue. Are you just saying you're sorry so that you don't lose your job? Or are you saying sorry because you believe what you did was wrong? Now, if you believed what you did was wrong, I can forgive you once, right? Forgive you once, and you do it again, right? Shame on you if you do it again, and I try to forgive you again, and you're probably going to do it a third time. Shame on me, right? And so you have to look at it from the perspective of, it's not necessarily that I'm saying that Morgan deserved to lose contracts, but what America is saying right now is we're done with white America covering over their racism, right? Or covering over their perception of what is they have the right to say, the ability to say without punishment. Those days are ending, right?
Right, and I think to really answer your question, Jeff, as far as how is that fair for Morgan to lose his record label and Nick Cannon to get his job back, the reality is you have to look at, again, in context. So white America has been getting their job back for hundreds of years.
Never losing their job.
Never losing their jobs in the first place. They've been allowed to continue racist behavior, derogatory statements, and never be accountable for it. It's been accepted. So you have to look at it kind of from that perspective and why that's a big deal. Now, no behavior is acceptable that is racist, derogatory against anybody. So, those should always be called out, and a person should be made accountable no matter what color they are. So all sides, if you're going to be a bigot or you're going to be racist, you need to be called out on it, because it's not okay, because we will never be able to move forward in unity and still have that division. So regardless, Morgan should have been called out and made accountable for it, and he should have apologized. And the fact that he's done it again makes you really start to question who this person really is. And I think at that point, the label thought, well, if he's done it once, he's now done it twice, we may have an issue, and that's not necessarily the kind of person we want to represent with our company. That's not the image we want attached to us. And so I think you kind of have to look at it from that perspective. There's been a double standard in this country for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
now you're the victim of it.
Right. Now it's just being reversed back onto the people who created it in the first place. And people are feeling uncomfortable with that reformation against, white people for saying things like that. And they see, black people saying, oh, they're getting away with it. But that's not necessarily the case.
I think it would have been a much more powerful dialogue had Morgan come out and said, I did use it.
Yeah.
I want you, America, to explain to me why my use of it is still negative. Okay?
I didn't mean it in a negative way.
I don't mean it in a negative way. These are my friends.
Right.
I party with them on a regular. The more liquor we drink, the looser I get. They call me white boy or whatever I don't know their dialogues, right? However, I think it's time for us as Americans to begin to open up our horizons, even though I'm not comfortable with it. Okay, I'm not comfortable with a white guy using the N-word, right? And I'm kind of on that tip. Sure, you can use it. We just might also see where the twisted T goes, right? or whatever that it is, right? There's certain white guys that I know, right? that they could use it. I'd look at them cockeyed, right?
Right.
I might lay hands on them, right? I'm probably not going to go to the full extent. Then there's guys who I've never met that if I heard them use it, I would be deeply offended, right? Not knowing their context, not knowing their background. But if a stranger uses it amongst me, I'm going to be offended, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm going to bring the fight to their front yard to find out, who do you think you are
to use this word?
To use this word, right?
And I even caution, white people who do have black friends, right? That, are maybe really close to you, like, brothers or siblings, part of your family.
Sure.
And I would even say to you, if you feel it acceptable to use this word because it is a term of endearment for you in that dialogue, you have that conversation with that person and you get their okay to say it.
And start looking up a lot on the black card. There's a lot out there on YouTube for you to research. Your black card is not universally applicable, right? Mm-mm. And so while you might have that leeway on your block, your neighborhood,
where they're
your
not going to
house,
beat your ass over it,
your house with your pool, your ice cream in the refrigerator, and you preparing the steaks for your black friends to come over, you don't necessarily have that same leeway down the street.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not so much that they hate you or that they're racist, but that word is a very sensitive word, and it's going to remain a sensitive word for a time to come. And I think that it would be important for Morgan to be able to dialogue about that.
Yeah.
And why he's used it. Listen, he's a sharp, upcoming
He's a great artist.
Phenomenal singer from the standpoint of his gifts and his talent. And I think he came through The Voice. Mm-hmm. And so I think that even a black artist actually is who originally, I think he won through, who's the guy that sits all the way over and has a wild wife?
Oh, you're talking about John Legend?
Yeah, I think he originally was selected by John Legend.
I don't remember.
Doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. But to talk about why he would use that word, right?
Yeah.
And where we as America really stands with that word, because it's something that we need to wrestle with over the next decade or so to create a new perspective of the word, right?
Well, and honestly, I really challenge all of our white viewers to really ask yourself, why are you offended by it when you hear black people use it?
Sure.
Like really, search yourself at what offends you with the rap music, what offends you, and kind of search your heart of why you feel affected by that. Mm-hmm. And then try to take into context the understanding of where it came from and what it means to them versus what it means to you. And
good.
And I hope that will maybe help bring new conversations and new understandings to, we are in a very different place with a lot of things than we were. We still have a very long way to go with, racial division in this country. But I think that that's a good start to really just search your own heart and understanding. And again, I don't ever like to hear that word, and, but I'm not going to be offended because Richard uses it, because I feel he has the right to use it. And, that's a personal choice. Now, there's plenty of people of color who personally do not choose to use that word.
And I'm trying to limit myself the older I get to it. Yes.
Right. So it's a personal choice. It's a family choice, too, of what you find acceptable with your children and whatnot. And so, I hope, Jeff, that we answered your questions for you. I hope we brought some different perspective on that. If you feel like maybe we didn't, definitely, reach out to us again. We'd love to dialogue more with you on it. But, we just really want to encourage people just to have open minds and open hearts and just really put yourself in somebody else's shoes.
And I really value that. Here we are an hour into this conversation, and really I feel like I could talk another 2 hours about just the N-word.
Yeah.
Okay? Just what it's meant, where it's going, the evolution of the word. I think that the best punchline of any of our videos is probably, you're not sorry, you're a
fucking racist.
I think that's hilarious. I want you as a listening audience, though, to know this. I'm not actually judging Morgan.
No.
Okay. I think it's an application that's very true in a world context, that that's the way we should view it.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if Morgan is a racist.
Right.
Okay. And I think it's fair for the guy to have a second chance. right? I think it's fair for him to have a third chance, but I don't think it's fair for him to be able to hide from the truth,
right?
Which is that it wasn't an accident. Okay?
And I don't think it's wrong for the person he works for to say, "Hey, I don't want that as a standard for my employees."
Yeah.
So I think they were completely within their rights, and I don't think it is a racial him versus Nick Cannon of what's right and what's wrong. They're different situations, they're different contexts to it. So, I don't think that they were wrong for what they did. Do I think that he deserved to have all that? Maybe not. But, obviously, hopefully he's going to learn from it and he's going to make himself better. Yeah. And he's going to represent that as white people, we do not have an entitlement to say this word.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's kind of like a good coworker of mine said to me earlier today who watched our video. And she's like, I just love Morgan. I don't want to stop listening to his music because you think he's racist. And I'm like, listen, I still listen to R. Kelly. Right. I hear Ignition come on the radio. I can't help but sing it. And they say that he's a pedophile, right?
Yeah, he's something.
And so if I take the two, and I'll be honest with you, pedophile or racist, they're both the same. But I probably would listen to Morgan before I would listen to R. Kelly for that reason, okay? However, both of them are a sin against humanity.
Yeah.
And I'm not comparing the two one to another. Anything done against a child is unreprehensible.
Absolutely.
Right? However, it don't change the quality of his music, right? And I'm not saying that Morgan doesn't deserve a second chance, doesn't deserve some rehabilitation, doesn't deserve that you buy his record. If you love country music, support the dude. Sure. But let's not hide from the truth, because in hiding from the truth, we never advance as a people. Yeah. Listen, I'm Richard Thomas.
And I'm Tiffany Thomas.
And I am so thankful that you've been here with us through this episode of Lionheart Institute podcast. I hope you've gained some things out of it. I hope it's been a dialogue that'll maybe trickle into some other conversations in your life. And don't be afraid to have hard, uncomfortable conversations about hard, uncomfortable words, why you feel the way that you feel, while respecting the person that you're having that conversation with, because we all can grow from them.
Absolutely.
If you wouldn't mind, please do like, dislike, comment on this particular video. And then there's something that we really, really would love it if you would do.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss on our videos.
Bing, bing.
The more subscribers we have, the more opportunities we have for these videos. And if you're watching and not subscribing because you're waiting around to see if you like our other stuff, I promise you if you like this, you'll like our other stuff. So just go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it.
I sure do keep getting prettier.
It's true, he does.
Thank you.